Okay, it has been a while, Ramon, uh, when we talked for the last time. And obviously, a lot of things has happened. Uh, and particularly January the 6th was a major event in the United States, the storming of the Capitol. And before that, we already had some discussions on the decline of the US empire, the, the different social composition, the changing social relations in the United States, the changing geopolitical order, uh, and that the rise of fascism in the United States and internationally would sooner or later generate things like this. We talked about it, but we didn't particularly foresee a storming of the Capitol. But the fact that the rise of fascism will come with things like this is something we had discussed, right? So I would suggest that we go into some more in depth into understanding the storming of the Capitol.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me say the following. I think in the things that we've been discussing here, when I said before that Trump was not going to stay passive about the results of the election, that he's in the process of organizing a coup d'etat, I was foreseeing this. This is what I was seeing coming, honestly. I kind of,
yeah, you mentioned that.
I mentioned that. I said, this guy is going to organize, is in the process of organizing a coup d'etat. He changed the Pentagon leaders to have loyal people in his side. That he did after the election immediately. He went through the courts to contest the results. And then he had white supremacist people mobilized all over the country in many places, in some places, questioning the results and mobilize, etc. In other places, they would just show up right there where people were voting or where people were counting votes. They would show up there, to put pressure and that kind of thing. So the environment of a coup d'etat was there. I mentioned that several times in our conversation. So for me, it was not a surprise. If we would have had a week before a conversation like this one, I would have alerted you that the 6th of January something will happen in Washington, because it was all over the place. It was advertised. They were ready to go there. And these people, because they are white supremacist militias and they are completely military prepared and they have weapons. And in the US, that everybody has a weapon and it's legal, So these people are going to show up with their weapons there,
But it couldn't be a proper coup d'etat. Why? Because yes, you could storm the Capitol, but a coup d'etat means that you take over the whole state apparatus. You see, it's not just storming the Capitol. And they were not there yet.
Yeah, what happened was, first, that the legal case that Trump expected to work, because he has the majority in the Supreme Court, it didn't work, okay? Because he didn't have a solid case. So because of the lack of a solid case, that didn't fly. In the case in the legal court, remember, he went over, I don't know how many states in the US with a legal team, taking case by case and putting the case in the courts and all of that. And he was expecting that something will pop up that will take it all the way to the Supreme Court, etc. But nothing popped up because he didn't have anything, really. And so, so that's the first thing. Second thing is that when that didn't work, then the next step was, okay, let's take people to the streets, okay? And let's storm the Capitol, okay? And he was expecting more loyalty from his administration than what he really got. He was expecting more loyalty from Republican leaders. he was expecting more loyalty from some of his own people in the White House, security people, Homeland Security, etc. And that didn't work. Okay. So it shows that he tried to do a coup, but that didn't work because he didn't have the people he was counting with, including the vice president of the US. The vice president of the US, who is super loyal to him, came out in public denouncing the storm of the Capitol. Okay. So he was suddenly, he was alone with the white supremacist militias. That's what happened. And he has to back off. Okay. But he was trying to go all the way to see if there will be a shift by interrupting the election, the nomination of Biden in the Congress. Okay. He could then gain time and get all his troops together to try to get like a change in the results, that people in Congress, for example, there will be, his troops will be lined up, you see. So it was not well prepared, if you want to say that. I will agree with that, but it was an attempt. He was testing the grounds for a coup d'etat, you see. It was a way of trying.
Look, I agree with the point that you make, that the way the coup d'etat would work in this scheme is that the mobilization and the storming of the Capitol would put pressure on Mike Pence to take the step to stall the whole thing. And from stalling, take a judicial coup d'etat. You see?
But not only Mike Pence. He was counting on some key figures also is in his own administration. Some key figures in the Republican Party, in the Senate and the House. He was counting with people that were loyal to him, that in the last minute back off and went against him. Okay, these were super loyal people like Graham. Graham is just an example of many like this, that were super loyal, that were arguing the case for him and all of that. And then they decided not to argue the case for him after what happened. He thought he would have had more support from the establishment than what he got. You see, partly because I think there is maybe he himself saw the limits, okay, of that chair called President of the United States. Because the powers that be in this country is the Pentagon, the generals of the Pentagon with the military industrial complex, and Wall Street. These are the two bases of power. These are the people who sit down in offices to decide the world, okay? These are the people who have the power to decide things, including what is going to do the US government. And so what happened was that in the arrogance, maybe, of Trump, his hubris, his arrogance, made him blind to the reality of how power is constituted in the US. So the moment he moved his forces this way, and he didn't have the backup from the two main structures of power, okay, he thought that by controlling the top seats here and there, he will have all these forces on his side, and that doesn't work that way, okay? So one of the things this shows, I think, is that the white supremacists are, look at this, what happened that day. First, I don't know if you saw what happened. The police, they entered the building because the police in the Capitol Hill opened the gates for them. So look, he thought he thought he has the support of all these people. You see that they were going to storm the Capitol Hill. They would stop the election of Biden. All his troops will be lined up in his favor. He will force for taking his case seriously, about corruption, fraud in the election, stuff like that. All these lies he was putting together. And he was expecting some stalemate there from which he can build up a strong case, having millions of people on his side. Remember that.
Sure.
So he was expecting that. Look, there is a video of him in the White House with a big screen. They were like in a party, but that big screen was about the people going there. And they were saying, oh, wait to see what happened. Wait till you see what happened. They knew the whole thing was organized. So these people got into the Capitol Hill because the police basically allowed them to get in, and the police collaborated with them. So this tells you a lot about white supremacy in the USA. That is, if it would have been blacks and Latinos, I'm telling you, they will be trying to storm the Capitol Hill that way. There will be hundreds, if not thousands of people dead and arrested that day. That day, these people stormed the Capitol Hill. These people provoked the death of a few people there. These people injured many policemen. And you know what? They came in and out of the Capitol Hill with police collaboration, doing selfies with them, and nobody arrested. You know that the arrests came after they left. So that means nobody was arrested, even though they vandalized the building, even though so it was a terrorist attack in a sense. They vandalized the building, they attacked the police. There were many police injured. There was even people that died there in the struggle there with the police. Some of their own folks, but also people who were not of their side. So there was all these things. There was shooting inside the Capitol Hill. Imagine what I'm talking about. And nobody of these people were arrested there. I mean, the arrests came later.
Yeah.
That tells you something about white supremacy.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, the second thing that I want to say before you go in is look at also at the fact that for a few hours, USA got a flavor of what they've been doing in the world at large, organizing this kind of coup d'etat like this, with enormous consequences in many countries around the world, because it's not a few hours, it's decades, sometimes 40 years of dictatorship, okay, that the CIA organized and put together with hundreds, if not millions of people killed, and suddenly all these things they've been doing with lately, for example, in Bolivia, or these attempts in Venezuela, or the coup d'etats that they organized in other places around Latin America or Africa or other places. Suddenly, for a few hours, they saw, they leave what they have put forward for 100 years already, if not more, to the rest of the world, you see? And that's another one that I think it was very interesting to see in terms of the white supremacy imperialist system, how, suddenly the chicken comes home to roost, So, and then you have the empowerment of these white supremacist militias that are not going to go back home, dude. They're not going back home. These people are going to stay. They came out of the closet with Trump. Now they're not going back to the closet. They're going to continue in the streets. They're going to continue growing. They have millions of supporters, millions. It's not a few, it's millions. And so the USA is coming now to a very dangerous moment. Because what I'm going to say, and I've been saying that already for a while, I also said that in the videos before, that we are seeing the development of the possibility or the probability of a civil war in the USA. That is, the possibilities are day after day becoming higher and higher and higher, because the explosive combination of having an economic Great Depression with a very weak left movement that doesn't have the possibility to put forward a different narrative, and with a very strong white supremacist movement. That combination is explosive, because what is going to happen is what we've been seeing happening in the last 10 years. White supremacy, the working classes are buying off into the narrative of white supremacy. And white supremacy is just growing and growing and growing. So what we see is fascism becoming very strong. Look, for the nomination of Biden, January 19, already the FBI is announcing a US-wide mobilization of FBI and police forces, because they expect, or they are afraid, that the white supremacists will go to the street that day, not only in Washington, but in the whole country. So look, we're talking about a very, very, because listen, here everybody has a weapon in their closet. So we're talking about a situation that is very, very explosive and delicate, for a possibility of civil war. I've been saying that also in the videos. So I was not surprised at all to what happened January 6th. For me, was like a continuation, like exactly what we were expecting. We didn't have a video in the several weeks before January 6th. We were like a month off. But if we would have had a video there, I would have told you that this was coming, because it was announced everywhere. You know that the FBI have alerted the authorities of the US about this, that this was coming. And guess what? Nobody did anything. So it's very, very, very interesting, the dynamics, because I think, first, Trump intervened precisely as a president to allow these people in and to not get, for example, he impeded the National Guard from coming earlier to the streets. He was stopping that, that day. So he was protecting them. He was like stopping and getting also on his side a lot of the police forces in Washington, D.C., as well as in the Capitol Hill. There was almost no police there. I mean, you look at the Black Lives Matter mobilization several months before to Capitol Hill, the place was militarized, packed of police all over the place. People could not even put a foot in the first step of the Capitol Hill stairs. Look, these people, when they went there was nothing in front of them. On the contrary, collaborative police opening the gates for them. So this is, I'm talking to you about a combination. It reminds me a lot of the years of Hitler. Hitler will have the institutions of power, in his hand, plus the white supremacy or the Nazi, militias in the streets beating up people, and that combination was what allowed him to move forward into this dictatorship. The problem Trump has is that Trump do not have the support from the beginning, from 2016. He's a candidate that came up without the support of the power pillars of the US imperialism. He didn't have the full support of Wall Street nor of the Pentagon. He came in, the candidate, you remember, of Wall Street and the Pentagon was Hillary Clinton. They thought they had it easy with Trump. And then suddenly surprise, he won the elections. Hillary was toppled. And he's coming with an economic program that is very different from the globalist financial capital. It's a protectionist program, you see, it's a protectionist, US-centric, kind of program that is dismantling the structures of globalization at a world scale. And so he has all these power structures against him. I'm not supporting him, okay? Don't get me wrong. But this is what happened. And I'm not supporting also either the globalists, okay? But the contradiction there, the problem he faced is that he didn't have the support of the pillars of USA like Hitler did have. Hitler had the support of the pillars of the German financial capitalists and capitalists that allow him to move on. But then, then it was too late. By the time they tried to go against him, it was too late.
But that problem will exist, Ramon, still now. Because if there is a civil war, who is on one side and who's on the other side?
Yeah, this is where it's very interesting, Dew, because this is not a Republican-Democrat division.
Right.
This is what is very interesting. If you remember,
but I'm also talking militarily. You see?
Yes.
A civil war. Who is going to be militarily on one side, and the white extremist groups? They could have millions there, but I doubt whether at this stage they have enough support in the military and the Secret Service. I guess they will have some support that part would say, okay, let's make of the United States a military state now.
Okay. Let's go into then the details, Dew, because there's something that we cannot miss here in this conversation, because I'm kind of assuming things that I haven't exposed in an open way. And maybe this is where, because I'm not thinking, you think about a civil war in the USA. Okay, first thing I want to say is that the division is not Republican-Democrat. You will have a lot of Democrats and Republicans on the white supremacist side, and you have a lot of Democrats and Republicans on the other side. Look, Trump was in 2016, if you look at Dick Cheney, Bush father, Bush son, if you look at the list of Republican presidents, ex-presidents or vice presidents or leaders, McCain, all the leaders of the establishment, which are financial capital cadres, okay? These people were opposed to Trump and they voted for Hillary Clinton. And now something like that happened. A lot of Republicans, they were Republicans for Biden. You see? And so the whole division is not this way. First, this is very important to have in mind. The division is more about the narrative of let's make America great again, of, there are all these people, politicians, corrupt. They have even conspiracy theories. The guy with the horns sitting there that was all over the place, this is one of the leaders of the white supremacist conspiracy theories, the Canon movement, which is saying that they are all, these financial capitalists are controlling the world and they are all pedophiles. And it's a network of pedophiles, and Trump is a messiah that is coming to put order and to destroy them. This is, so there being millions of people in the white supremacists, in the white working classes, suffering the crisis of 2008, okay, having no narrative, alternative narrative about capitalism, about financial capital, about, economic depression, any of this, just this narrative about racism and about conspiracy theories and stuff like that, millions of people are buying into that, Democrats and Republicans, okay? And then the second thing, is that a civil war in the United States is not going to happen in an insurrection in Washington only. You're going to see states in the United States demanding independence from the federal government of the USA.
Yes.
And this is where I'm saying a civil war could come very easily. Look, the Soviet Union imploded and nobody expected this to happen, right? But here in the USA, we have all the signs ready for an implosion like this to happen. Because you have states, Michigan, Wisconsin, I mean, you go over the list, which are borderline because they have a lot of white supremacist militias on the ground. They have a lot of white supremacist militia people in the police forces, okay, who have entered the police forces. And in places like that, you can have a shift where you have big numbers of population, okay, on the side of these white supremacist things, shifting to the side of white supremacy and taking over parts of the USA, you see? And then starting a civil war between, the unionists and the people who wants, the federalists who wants the union, etc., and the people who want to break with that. Listen, California is bankrupt. And there is already a movement in California calling for independence from the USA. That at the beginning, people start laughing at it, but then suddenly these people start having a lot of support. So we need to watch this carefully because this could end up in a civil war here, okay? Remember, there are many things unfinished in US history that are still alive and are still carrying over into the present and the future. And one is the Civil War of 19th century. The so-called Black Reconstruction in America. That it was totally betrayed and it never was solved. And all these white supremacist people are coming from that history. Look, for the first time in US history, you have a Confederate flag entering the Capitol Hill. It's the first time in US history that this happened. And you have all these white supremacy militia inside Capitol Hill with a Confederate flag there. You remember? I mean, the photos were all over the world. What is that Confederate flag doing there? Well, it's obvious what they're talking about. They're talking about, going back to the good old times. That is, let's make white America great again. The good old times of, keeping people of color down and under an authoritarian regime. That's where they want to go. And all these white workers who happen to be discontent by the crisis, this is what they're buying into. Because there's no left movement, serious left movement in the USA that could provide an alternative narrative in the middle of this crisis. And so the narrative there is being provided by the extreme right. And the liberals are now becoming scared because these liberal financial capitalists, they are scared what they're seeing because their narrative doesn't work to stop them. On the contrary, their policies, neoliberal policies, is just pushing them more and more. It's just making the right-wing movement to grow, better than anything else. And that's exactly what is happening in Europe too. You have neoliberal figures, that they cannot stop the growth of the extreme right because it's precisely these neoliberal policies, the ones that are, in a sense, creating the conditions for these fascist movements to grow. And this is what is going to come with Biden. Biden is going to come back and try to do business as usual, and he's going to face a different country because
there are some interesting things, Ramon. Let me just comment too, because I think that it's impossible. You're right on that. That's impossible that once the ghost is out of the bottle, you can put it back like that as easily,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
those people who have been there, they watched the storming of the Capitol, this extreme right and the right. They themselves are proud of it. They don't see it as a big mistake. They see it as a test of powers. So
Yes.
their confidence is not shaken by it. The confidence of the Republicans who supported Trump is shaken by it, but not his
Yes.
base. You see?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, here is one of the things that in the future will decide how civil war might develop or not. That is the question whether Trump and his, I see Trump just as a flag of a group of people, right? Who
Yes.
put out the policy of challenging the existing power structures, the democratic power structures, and replacing it with a more authoritarian power structure. They have now to decide, is election is waiting for the next 4 years the way to gain power again? And then they have two answers to do that. If they say yes, we are going to get power through elections, so in 4 year times we're going to come back in power, they have to decide, is the instrument still the Republican Party, or should we set up something else? That is, and both of these ways, these avenues will have big impact. Because let's just for a moment think that the Republican Party would split, right? And they would form a new party. Probably on the left, a similar thing might happen. If the left, think that, there's going to be an all-out war there, it might be something else. But if they decide, look, we don't want to get power in 4 year time, we don't want to wait that long, then the mobilization in the state for independence of the different states, separate states, they have to figure out how will this call for independence preserve their national power. That would be a problem, because if you have an independent California, what power does it give you internationally? Where is the might of the United States in an independent California? So I think even the right-wing powers would not risk tearing United States apart like the Soviet Union has done.
Well, I disagree there, you. I will
Yeah?
tell you why. Yeah, I will tell you why. I disagree because, see, California is one of the first 5 economies in the world. California can do very well on their own, okay? And so there is a logic there that given the conflicted relationship with, and let me tell you, the movement to secede from California is not only right wingers, it's also liberals and many people, who see that California could have a better future by, getting rid of the federal government. Okay,
Economically, but
and
not militarily.
they can develop their own military stuff. You see, and just, I mean, California has a national guard and has everything. So so the thing is the following. A lot of the white supremacist people, and this is where the contradiction comes with the globalists, okay, is that the white supremacist people, they are arrogant, they are racist, they would like to control the world the most they can, but their priority is not to control the world. Their priority is to control their own territory, country, etc. You know, so they are totally. That's why the protectionist policies comes in. And that's where the protection policies then become a contradiction for the globalization financial capitalists. They don't want borders like, they don't want borders, protectionist borders, because they want to be able to move their commodities and capital across borders without any problem. They're financial capital. They're not tied to a place. They want to move across without any kind of limits. So, and Trump was putting there a lot of problems for this. One of the first things that happened was when he was putting protectionist policies against China. I remember that Apple reacted saying, I mean, what are you doing? You want Americans to have now computers produced in the USA that are going to be more expensive than what we are selling them right now? Because that's the end of it. That's where we will end up if you put these things to China. These protectionist policies to China, because all this transnational capital has a branch in China, with cheap labor, etc., that creates the low prices that allow them for mass consumption in the USA and Europe. But if you don't have that, then you're forced to produce inside the country, in this case, USA, if you have protectionist policies, and then the prices will be much higher. So that will take a company like Apple to a major crisis, and not only Apple, many others, car industry, you name it, okay? So the policies they're putting forward are totally unrealistic from the point of view of the people who rule the world, okay? The people who are ruling the world right now, they see this kind of movements, this extreme right nationalist movement, as a problem, you see, because they see them as a potential danger to the globalization structure they put forward, okay? They have recognized already that they need to do something different than what they've been doing, because they know that if they don't do something, and if you look at the Davos World Economic Forum, they're calling for a reset. They call it a reset. And they're calling for a transformation of the way capitalism is working. And that transformation is going to be more digital capitalism, more authoritarianism, more things like this that are coming, and more control over people's life and things like this, okay? That's coming. And they know that neoliberalism is not working, so they need to destroy neoliberalism and create something worse. They're going to create something worse, where they can have the piece of the cake and the whole cake at the same time, okay? And so they can have the cake and eat it too, like they say here. So the point is that we're facing a situation where the white supremacists, which are mostly white working classes, okay, who are discontent by the pauperization of their standard of living, okay, the lowering down of their standard of living, and now losing faith in anything coming from Washington. There will be a point when they see that they cannot take over Washington. They will say, okay, I can take over my state if I cannot take Washington. And then we can do a movement where if everybody take a state, we can split the country. You see what I mean? We can have, so the moment they see failure in Washington, they're going to continue strengthening locally in their own state. And so if you have white supremacists now coordinating, they could say, okay, you take Wisconsin, I take Michigan, and you take South Dakota. And then now we have a federation among ourselves. And now we can, face Washington in a different way, and so this is I think the first step
that would
probably
change the dynamics of politics in the United States in a
completely. That's how I
fundamental
see
way.
a civil war coming, Dew.
Mhm.
Dew, that's how I see the civil war coming. I see it this way, more than an insurrection in Washington.
Right.
More than an insurrection, I
Mhm.
see a civil war emerging out of what I'm
through
telling you.
the independence movement, like a century ago. I mean, the Civil War in
Yes,
1860.
yes, that's what I was.
That is how it
But
came about because of the
That's what I
succession.
was.
Yeah.
Dude, that's what I was saying 10 minutes ago. That's
Hmm.
why I was saying
Yeah,
that there are
that makes
unfinished
sense.
agendas
Hmm.
in the USA going from the Civil War of last century. These
Hmm.
things are unfinished. They were never solved.
Hmm.
This thing was never solved. And therefore, this is coming back
Hmm.
with a force in the 21st century. And so this is where I see, I will tell you something. If the white supremacists try to do a takeover of Washington again, okay, like they go again to try to take over the Republican Party like they did with Trump, okay, that could happen. Maybe there are people thinking we still have a chance. Let's take over the Republic. They basically took over the Republican
Yeah,
Party. Okay, they basically have taken over the Republican, so they can try it again in 2024. But I can tell you something. Maybe they're successful, maybe not. I'm not sure what will happen. But I'm telling you, if they're successful, it will be hell because they are going to come with a much more aggressive agenda than what Trump did. And they will come with probably a leader that will be smarter than Trump. Trump was very problematic as a leader of this thing because different from someone like Hitler, Trump is not an ideologue. Trump is a businessman. If you pay him, he do whatever you ask him. That's part of the scandal of the Trump administration. Is that there was no U.S. foreign policy. It was Trump doing business with the Saudis, with Qatar, with all the countries, with Israel. Business. That is, you give me this policy, and I pay you this much. Look, here in the center of San Francisco, there is a building of Trump. I don't remember which floor. There is a floor that is supposed to be some kind of company from one of these Gulf uh, countries, monarchies. I believe it was Qatar or one of those that had a company. It's a scandal here, this thing. Had a company who rented a full floor of that building that belongs to Trump, paying something like, I don't know, $400,000, $500,000 a month, a huge amount. And you know what? Journalists have gone there to check what's going on there. And you know what? It's empty. The office is empty. The whole floor is empty. So what's going on there? And so part of the scandal of the Trump administration, and I think this is going to come, if the Democrats are courageous, this is going to come in this year, in the next few years, all the scandals of the dealings of Trump with foreign countries. You see, and this is the problem that the white supremacists, is one of the weaknesses of the white supremacist movement, that even though Trump organized their forces and organized them and was the leader for a while of this movement, he's not the kind of leader they need. He's a corrupt guy that at any point will betray them, you see? And so for money, you see? And so the next one is going to be more dangerous than Trump. This is what I'm afraid of. And if they win elections in Washington, they're going to come with a more aggressive agenda than will be everything we've seen from Trump. And in case they lost, the next thing they're going to do is then focus on back into the local states. And then, so this is,
probably it will be a combination in sense
probably
that,
will be a combination. Yes.
that they bank on both policies, and the clever people there will have this idea of secession as one strategy,
Yes.
and preparing for it and combining it with
Yeah.
whatever the outcome might be in 2024.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah. Absolutely. These things are in process now because listen, this white supremacy movement have been calling for secession of some of these states already. The same one that went and stormed Washington. They already have been calling for that in their own local states. So this is things that are cooking right now. The water is boiling. The water is boiling. So this is something we need to anticipate. And the other thing is then what are the social movements? What are the Black Latino people going to do? So here is where
I think that we should reserve for the next session.
okay.
And let's go to that because that's very important. What is, given this analysis, which was just outlined by you, how is the response to that analysis in terms of what can social movement do given what might be coming in the coming years? So next session we'll deal with that, Ramon.
Okay, good.
Thank you for
no
this.
problem.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Take
you.
care. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.